Welcome to my weekly review. You're looking at a daily chart of the Nasdaq, which was up 191 points on Friday, 0.81% gains. We'll take that. It closed at 23,671. Volume 5% below the 50-day average, which is, since November has been pretty light prior to the holiday, Thanksgiving holiday, and then throughout December. Starting January, we're starting to get a little more volume, but only one day, I believe, above the average. The Nasdaq, though, is digesting these gains, these massive gains from Liberation Day, 62% rally from April 7th to October 29th, and we had the 9% correction, and since then it's just been chop suey. But it is tightening up here near the moving averages. And last week we saw a gain of 435 points or 1.88% on the first full trading week of the 2026 new year. And you can see the volume here, 4% above the, I guess that would be the 10-week average. Anyway, NASDAQ is the lagging index right now. I know. How can you say that? It was up, almost 2% last week. We had a great week. But some of the other indexes have made new highs, and the Nasdaq has not been able to make a new high. 24019 is the high from October 29th. It closed 23,671. It had a prior, and I know people say this is a triple top or head and shoulders pattern with these three highs. It does need to do some work and get above, 24019, but you got to give it some time. It's been less than 3 months after, what did I say, 62% gain. So, just relax, hang in there, and let some other indexes, take the lead for a little while. The Nasdaq was leading for most of 2025. S&P 500 has made new highs here. It closed at 6,966, up 44 points on Friday, 0.65%. If we take a look at the week performance, yeah, it was up 1.5%, a little more than 1.5%, with 15% above average volume. So the SPY is looking very healthy, making new highs here. I want to get the prior high and then 6,920 and then 6,945, 6,978. So you can see the progression there. And then the Dow Jones Industrial Average. I know it's only 30 stocks, but this thing's knocking on the door of 50,000. I'm going to get my party hat, my party shirt, my party shoes, whatever, when it hits 50,000. And it will. Give it some time. But the Russell was the big star last week. Yeah, breaking out here. This is up 116 points or 4.62% on the week. That is an awesome week. So we're seeing a rotation out of those Mag 7, the mega cap tech stocks into other areas, not only other sectors, but into different types of stocks like the mid and smaller cap names. So I think this is a healthy rotation longer term. But for me to start this video, I got to go to these Mag 7s and just kind of show you here what I'm talking about. Apple down 4% last week. That's a big move for Apple. So they're selling these Mag 7 stocks to start the year and at the end of 2025. And, it's kind of mechanical that institutions can only hold so much. There's restraints and constrictions. You got to be in compliance. So they sell stocks that even, they want to own. They buy other stocks and they come back later and buy the ones they really want to own. Not saying that that's the case here, but there are compliance rules. Microsoft, is kind of flat on Friday, up 1.34% for the week. Meta Platforms, flat on the week, doing nothing, just kind of waiting for earnings. Amazon had a powerful week, up 9%. You can see it's got this nice base pattern here as it undercut the 50, now rallied back up. If you're looking to buy it, it's yeah, a little bit above its moving averages. I want to get them a little tighter to the moving average, but Amazon looks good and Google looks good out of the Mag 7s. Yeah, those look the best. Google there at 328.83. I actually bought that one last week. Who cares? Who cares? Nobody cares what you buy, Marty. Nobody cares. Um, Tesla undercut the 50, rally back above, kinda. Close right at the 50. This one's just going sideways, more chop suey action, much like the Nasdaq. Can't make new highs. What was the last one? I think is NVIDIA. NVIDIA, a lot of news, a lot of noise, not doing anything. This is dead money. Now, I say I like to buy stocks that are trading tight, near their moving averages. This one certainly qualifies. You can see those moving averages, they're all within like 0.6%, but it's slightly below the 50, 0.8% below the 50 and the 5, and is 0.2% below the 21. So those are three tight moving averages there, but I'm not going to buy NVIDIA until it starts acting a little better. I would say that 188 is a legitimate trigger right here. So maybe I will pull the trigger on NVIDIA. But like I say, a lot of news last week, a lot of noise, and just no action with the stock. The Consumer Electronics Show, provided some thump in this, technology area, but it was mostly stock specific and not sector specific. All right, I'm going to move on because that's what I do. I like to trade stocks. I like leading stocks and leading groups, and there's no more obvious leading stock than SanDisk right now. And I know a lot of people say it's a blow off top. They were telling me that when it was 284 and then it pulled back and oh, it's done, it's over. But all it really did, if you take a look at this action here, you got these tight bars, tight trading all the way up, and then it starts getting wide and loose, wide and loose. And what does it do? It just forms a base. It's not the end of the world. It just forms a base. Stocks are going to form bases after, runs from what, 50 to 280. So it forms this base. And last week, the first week of 2026, it just decides to bust out, I don't know, 37%. And if you take a look at this objectively, you can see that this is a nice, high, tight flag pattern. And all it did was break out of that pattern last week with volume. So that's not Aunt Sue, buying this stock. Although it might be Aunt Sue. She probably is buying this one too. She should be. And so should you. No, I shouldn't say that. You do whatever you want. I own it. So I'm biased. So I realize that. But I don't think this is a blow off top. I did the comparison of SanDisk and Micron to NVIDIA and Supermicro back in 2023, early 24. And I'm not going to do that here because I don't have the time. But I think it was on Wednesday's video where I did that. So very similar comparisons here. So SanDisk, big winner last week. Micron, this computer data storage group is the top group. I think I have these here, maybe not. Okay, don't do this, Marty. You're gonna cause problems. The top performing industry groups is yeah, computer data storage. You can see here up 26%, in the first 6 trading days of the year. I think that bodes well. The media newspaper group was only Wall Street Journal and News Corp. So there's only two stocks driving that whole sector. Market surge will change these groups here pretty soon. The semiconductor equipment group, I'm going to get to that in a minute. The mining metal. So yeah, looking pretty decent here for those groups to start the year. So I'm just attracted to top stocks and top groups. So these are the two that I want to own, Micron because I'm a front runner and trend trader, and so that I'm gravitating towards these and, until the trend bends at the end. I'm going to stick with these. This is the earnings gap higher here. Oh, what date was this, Marty? So they don't have earnings for a while. They just reported earnings. Okay, middle of December. And since then, the character changed a little bit because it kept pulling back to the 50, pulling back to the 50, and now it's just surfing the 5. And that's why I have this on the 5 because leading stocks will find support at the 5. And so every time it pulls back to the 5, it's go time. And then every time it rallies up, right now it's 9% above the 5 on January 6th. So what does it do? It pulls back to the 5. Then what does it do? It blasts up again, 5%. So Micron, this is a trend trader's dream right here. Just yeah, buy these dips. Actually, you should buy the bounce off the dip because you never know how far it's going to dip. But this one is dipping 1 day, 1 day, 2 days, 1 day, 2 days. That's all it's giving you a chance to get in. And leading stocks are going to make it difficult for you to buy. It's going to feel like you're chasing. But if you're really technical trading, you're just trading off the 5. So You're not really chasing, you're waiting, being patient, waiting for it to pull back, and then you're pulling the trigger, and then that's called trading around the core, right? You sell when it spikes like this. Like Friday had spiked up, what would I say, 5%? Yeah, 345. Yeah, trim some, wait for it to pull back. Anyway, you can do whatever you want. That's just the way I like to play it. Anyway, WDC, a lot of my friends own this one. They asked me, is it a laggard? Well, compared to the other two, it is, but I mean, compared to the rest of the stock market, it's doing great. It's just finding support at the 21 instead of the 5, like SanDisk and Micron. See, pulls back to the 21, finds support. Very steady. I mean, if you're a trend trader, that's fantastic, right? Just buy when it comes back to that 21. STX, another one we had on the ready list last week at MC Stock Charts, had a decent week. It was a little herky-jerky for me, up 6%. You can see a nice breakout there from that little like wedge pattern. This is actually an ascending base pattern, but this right here acts as a wedge prior to last week. So get your facts straight, Marty. Yeah, a little wedge here. And then it bounced last week. This one now is coming back to the 50, though, where you saw Western Digital at the 21 and Micron and SanDisk at the 5. So you have to make that distinction. You have to know your stocks. You have to know the character of your stocks and if it's acting normal or not. This is totally normal action. So, like I said, I like the top stocks in the top groups. So I'm going to move on here. The equipment group is one of the top groups as well. This is a ranking. I don't go by rankings, I go by performance because rankings, it's like college football. The teams are ranked and they get on the field and they stink. So you want teams that perform like Indiana. You don't want teams that are ranked high. You want teams that are performing well. This one up 6.66 on Friday. Ooh, I'm not going to say anything about that, but almost 10% for the week. Broke out recently from this cup shape pattern, and this is the leader of this group. I believe, although there are other stocks within the group performing, beautifully. This is Applied Materials, first week of the year is up 12%. Thank you very much. Lam Research. I mean, there's plenty of these names here. This is up 18% last week. ACLS, another one that I kind of like. It was only up 8%, kind of a laggard there. Was it AMCR research? Nope. Oh, Marty, you shouldn't do this. Did you write it down? No, you didn't write it down, did you? ACMR, that's it, ACM Research. This one was up 18% as well. And this one just broke out from this cup-shaped pattern here. This looks fantastic. Now, you don't want to chase, right? So if it's going to start doing what SanDisk is doing in Micron, it's gonna pull back to this 5. This thing hasn't pulled back at all. How many days in a row is this up here? Every day in 2026. So it's definitely got a trend here in the 5. It's surfing this 5 here. So wait for it to pull back to the 5. I mean, you do whatever you want. I shouldn't say wait. Do whatever you want. Go ahead and buy. Go take a HELOC out in your home. Put it all into this stock. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But this one is 9% above the 5. So for me, I would let this, have the discipline or the patience to let the 5 catch up to it. The 5 on Friday is at 48.79, call it 49 bucks. This thing closed at 53. So yeah, let it come back a little bit or allow that 5 to catch up. All right, what other ones do I have here? FORM, yeah, same difference here. Um, big move, 16%. Did I do KLA 10 core? KLAC up 10%. These things are really smoking, as long with the defense group, which I'll get to in a minute. But you get the point here. I'm going to go to another group that was up a lot last year, pulled back towards the end of 2025. Now, as soon as 2026 hits, bam, this thing is rocking up 36% to start the year. Bloom Energy, and I bought this one as it broke above its downtrend line. If I go to the daily chart, I talked about this in my chat room at mcstockcharts.com, but I didn't put it on the ready list, but it did break above the downtrend line and then above that trigger on Thursday after the news was announced that they made a deal. And so it was kind of wonky on Thursday where here it rallied up, then pulled back. You got some profit takers and then buyers all day long. Then Friday comes in buyers all day long. So it tells me that, like I said, Aunt Sue's not buying that stock. You could look at the volume coming in on Bloom Energy. Is it going to take out the 147.86? I don't know, probably, but it's probably going to have some profit taking and pullbacks before it does that. Their earnings are scheduled for February 5th. So, and I know people saying, oh, this thing's expensive. I'm going to short it. Go ahead. I don't short strong stocks in an uptrend, but be my guest. Oklo, now I've been saying that the AI trade was dead with, Oracle and CoreWeave and ServiceNow and Salesforce just getting slammed. And I pointed this one out because this one had a big move up to 193, from what, 17 bucks to 193, and it pulled back to its 200. Well, stocks are going to pull back to their 200. That's what they do. But it found support, now it bounced. So my bad on this one, up 35% last week as well. And this was what some, trader friends of mine would call an avalanche trade, where it just gets the sellers get exhausted. You see the selling starting to dry up here. Take a look at this on the daily. Yeah, look at this. And so when you run out of sellers in this avalanche trade, there can only be buyers left, right? So it makes this bottom at the 200. And so he made a great trade. So congrats to you. And you know who you are. I'm not gonna call you out. How about that? Some other names in this group that I like that are not doing anything is GEV. This one's just making me really aggravated. It's got too many of these bars, these inverted hammer candles. It's got that big one there that burned me, so yeah, I'm not going back to this one until it starts acting better. It needs a little spanking. Yeah, I can't say that in 2026, can I? Well, anyway, I'm going to avoid it. Back to the 50. It does deserve a spanking, though. Cost me money. CEG falling out back to the 200. So we'll see what happens here. Friday, went up on news is SMR, Bloom Energy. These guys had news last week. SMR up to the 50 and got the Matombo treatment. So I'll be watching this one next week. And, if it goes above that 23.35 level, yeah, I'm interested. Even though I already own Bloom, yeah, that might be a decent trade. If these ones want to get back in vogue, and start being leaders in 2026, I'm all for it. I'm trying to keep an open mind. VST, same thing, had news of a deal, ran up, got rejected at the 200. There you can see the Matombo as it closed at the lows of the session there. And you can see there it is, rallied up on news, gap higher, sellers all day long. They said, no, 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 not today, like Matombo. So, if it can get through, if it get through 180, let's say, then, I'm all in, right? But right now, it's got to prove itself. You got to be from Missouri and say you got to show me, right? Yeah, make these things prove themselves. All right, moving along to what's really cooking here. The top group, one of the top groups. I know it's 11th ranked, but it's the second top performing group. And like I say, I only care about performance. UEC, this is a top performing group. Excuse me, this is a top performing stock in the second best performing group in 2026. So if it wants to start a new trend, I'm all for it. Up 13% last week. That will definitely help your portfolio. But you can see it's just consolidating within a base, undercutting the 50, now rallying back above here. Close at the lows on Friday here as it tried to rally up 1591. Yeah, 10% of the daily range. Still, watch that five here. If it wants to trend along the five, it could do that all year. This is how stocks start, right? Say, how did that stock go up 300% in the year? Well, it started out the first week going up 13%. That's how it did it. Or in another U. Yeah, consolidating within a base, not quite as strong as the one I just showed you, UEC. It closed right at its five on Friday, so definitely want to watch for next week. CCJ, I like this chart a lot. I didn't put it on my ready list because I think it needs some time to kind of handle out and then shake some fools out. Right now, we just got buyers every darn day. So I want to pull back maybe to that 21 below 100. Yeah, that'd be nice before I get into Kamiko, but it's going to do what it wants to do, not what I want it to do. And it could certainly just take off and rally up starting next week. So keep your eyes open for that one. Then the copper play is SCCO, another mining metal stock that's just acting beautifully. So, if you're a trend trader, you just say, hey, this one pulled back to the 50 and it found support. Good time to get in. If you didn't get in and you just watched it rally up, we'll pull back to the 21, the last day of 2025, and then in 2026, it's performing well. Yep, nearly 15%. So copper has it's gone ballistic, man. It's gone parabolic. I talk about gold and silver a lot, but I don't talk about copper enough. And I think copper is a good way to play it in 2026. This is Ivanhoe Cup with elongated handle. Yeah, definitely another one that I like in that group. All right, I'm going to move on. I did the computer data storage. I did the alternative energy, the semiconductor equipment. I did the mining and metals. Oh, I did mention gold, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah, there's some nice looking charts here too. This is AU, which was a top performer last year in 2025, starts off 2026 with a 7.77% advance. We'll take that. That looks good in the portfolio. Agnico Eagle. Now, I wanted to put this on the ready list, but to me, it's not ready. It needs some time to pull back here. Maybe not though. Maybe it's just going to bounce off this 50 and keep on rolling. Train kept a rolling up 12% last year. Definitely breaking out from that base. So yeah, I'm going to leave that one off, but because it's a little too hot for me. But man, it looks good. And same with Wheat and Precious. Another one that, started 2026 with a bang, up nearly 6%. Yeah, so those ones look good. Like I say, gold, silver, and metal, excuse me, copper, those metals are not going away. Aluminum, palladium, I mean, they're all doing well. Hmm. Which I don't think is a good thing longer term, but that's the way it is. We trade the market that we have, not the one that we want. Hecla has been on a heck of a run. Finding support at the 50 a couple times, and now forget the 50. This thing's, finding support at the 21 a couple times, and now it's surfing the 5. So incredibly strong stock. Hecla Mining up 19% last week. Once again, will definitely help your portfolio with that kind of a move. All right. I'm going to move on to the news. A lot of news here. We got the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference coming up this week, and it seemed like it started last week. There was so much news, and I'm not going to detail every little bit of news here. But a lot of these stocks moved on news, either, trial data or takeover. But Lilly, they did buy a company last week. It was flat in the week, just consolidating within a base. I'm thinking of putting this one on my ready list next week. I think this one's getting ready. Nice pullback to the 21. Yeah, I'm definitely going to put Lilly on my ready list next week. Thank you very much. Like anybody cares, right? Anyway, yeah, they bought a company, and there was another company, Merck and AbbVie, that were, gosh, Merck, what a move, that were in the news last week. They're in competition, I guess. That one fell out to buy Revolution. And I don't know, when you get this much noise, that's up 50% in a week. And this one was been on our it had been on our heat list, our relative strength list for a long, long, long time, like all fall because it was just doing this. And then we get to 2026 and there's I guess these overtures from Merck and AbbVie drove it up 50% last week. I wouldn't touch it here, even though it's probably going to get bought out, probably go higher. What was the deal? I think it was 30 billion was the number they're throwing around, but it was at 23 billion right now. So maybe 7 billion. I don't know, maybe another 30% gain here. Who knows? But to me, I mean, it's just a little stretched and the news is out. Everybody knows it. NBY, Nova Bay Pharmaceuticals. You can see this is a top ranked group. There's like 800 stocks in this group. I was only up 226% last week. And this is kind of what attracts people to the biotech names because they really move on news. This is CG Oncology up 30% last week. Breaking out of a base here on news once again. ELVN. This one reminds me of a Spinal Tap 11 breaking out of this base here because that's the way my mind works. 67% move last week. So like I said, this is what attracts people to the biotech stocks. And you're going to hear a lot of news and deals next week, starting Monday, probably even this weekend on the biotech front. This is MIRM Pharmaceuticals. This is up 11% last week on news on Friday. And so, like I said, everybody's attracted to this stuff until you run into something like Aquestive, which whoops, down 37% as FDA kind of they didn't send them a CRL letter, but they need some more evidence and data, and I think this is going to be a while. So Wall Street, they just shoot first, ask questions later, and this one was down with massive volume, so you got to stay away from that one. So it's not all fun and games on Biotech Road. It's there's a lot of bumps along the road and landmines that will definitely hurt your performance. All right, I'm going to get to what's really happening on Wall Street, and that's it. It's flying. Anything that flies, drones, the carbon, that what was it? It's FTAI. They're using their engines to cool off data centers. This one was up. I missed this one. There's a subscriber at the mcstockcharts.com, this long, this one, which was up 17% last week. And then Carmen, he's into both. So congrats to you. You know who I'm talking about. And there might be more than one, but this one broke out 38% last week. That'll definitely help the portfolio. So this group is just absolutely flying. KTOS. This one's still actionable, not right away. It's just consolidating within a base. So wait for a pullback here. Wait for that five to catch up. That's what I'm going to do. I'm talking to myself. I'm not telling you. I'm speaking to myself. Yeah, it's 13. Call it 14% above its five. So let that green line catch up, or let it pull back, or go sideways for a couple of days. That one is white hot. GE I had on my ready list, and it did well last week, but I think it's still actionable here, still within that flat base pattern. You can see it undercut the 50 rally back up. So GE, I like that pattern. A little slower mover, every stock can't be SanDisk and Micron. You need some slow pokes. Lockheed Martin had a big week last week, up nearly 10%, but you can see longer term, this is why I recommend looking at all different time frames before, investing in a stock. But this is a defense name up more than 9% last week, still consolidating within a base, but extended on the daily chart, just depending on your time frames there. Um, How I Met Your Mother. This one was on my relative strength list for a long time last year as well. You can see it's been showing a lot of strength and formed a base and shows strength and formed a base, and now it's starting to do it again, starting to pull away from that base. Breaking out last week, nice 3% move. The week before, yeah, three, flat, another three. So that looks good in the portfolio as well. LHX, L3 Harris Group Technologies broke out of a base last week. This is a thing of beauty right there, up more than 10%. You can see the blue dot showing relative strength versus the index. I did mention FTAI earlier, so you know who you are. You're just killing it. Man, I'm jealous. Yeah, I don't know neither one of those. AV, AV is another one that I think I might put on the ready list next week. It just, it undercut the 50 rally back through and is a little extended from the five there, 11%. So I'm going to wait for it to calm down. As you can see, it's just straight up from the bottom, but still, within a base. So AV is very, very good. All right, that's enough of that. We've been flying, we've been on drugs, we've been through the mining and metals, gold, copper, silver, semiconductor equipment. We did the alternative energy, the Mag 7, the computer data storage. Now I'm going to go down and dirty to the coal mines. Warrior Met Coal. This one is just surfing its five as well. Man, there's so many opportunities out there in this market. Don't just get stuck to the Mag 7 or the Palantirs or Robin Hoods, the crowd strikes that are so popular. You got to branch out to some of this other stuff. Um, some smaller caps. This is a $5 billion market cap. Some of the smaller caps are doing well, which I showed you at the top. The IWM is the place to be in 2026. BTU, Peabody, Energy consolidating within a base. Another one that I might put on the ready list if it starts acting, pulling back and get some profit taking in here because it has come up, straight off the lows, 25 to 33. Let's take a look at this on the weekly. Yeah, that's a nice little base there. Energy Coal, top 10 ranked. That's ranked by market surge, not ranked by Marty. I just go for whatever's performing. So if you're performing, you're good. If you're not, get out of here. I consider it like a baseball team, right? If you're hot, you play. If you're striking out every time up, you hit the bench, right? So we play the hot hand, like in basketball, you feed the hot shooter, right? Or football, you feed the hot running back. Anyway, AMR, another one, up 19, almost 20%. A little extended here, but man, just acknowledging strength in this group. All right. Where am I going here? Oh, I wanted to point out, like Friday, we expected the tariffs to come through. The Supreme Court was going to rule, and then they backed off and said maybe next week. I think it was maybe Thursday or Wednesday. They're going to make a decision on the tariffs. And so that hit the retail names that were expecting a decision. No decision, too much uncertainty. AEO pulls back. I mean, it's fine. It's run up and consolidating. If you look at the weekly, it's high tide flag galore. That's all this stock likes to do is, high tide flag, high tide flag, and then high tide flag. So this one's going higher in my humble opinion, which is not that humble sometimes, but I think it's going higher. Five below. Just want to point out the weakness in the retail group. Some of them were strong, which I'll get to. Deckers, which manufactures overseas, definitely, going to be affected by the tariff. And you listen to ELF, their conference calls, they're really whining about the tariffs. Dollar General was down, been super strong name, pull back. Yeah, we want a decision from the Supreme Court on the tariffs. What's cooking, one way or the other, doesn't matter. I think if they just hold status quo, it'll be fine. If they say, he's got to go through Congress, it'll be fine. If they say you got to have reparations and pay them back, that'll be a problem. I don't think they'll say that. But anyway, it might be a nothing burger. I did mention there are some names that are kicking butt, and that's Victoria's Secret. I guess they brought their little pageant show back. Somebody's happy about that. Supported the moving averages. Victoria's Secret, yeah, monster move, 23.5% last week. So anyway, that's it for the retail names. Got to do a little bit of self-serving stuff. Serve Robotics. Yeah, robotics very strong last week. That looks like, a nice little cup-shaped pattern here. Not bad on the weekly. Yeah, base on base, not bad for that one. Only up 24% last week. Got to work on that. This is Symbotic, another robotic play up 9%. This is the Consumer Electronics Show. There was some news here around this. RR was up 9% as they had their robots feeding, I think, Jensen Huang and bringing them a Starbucks coffee or something or McDonald's. It's all for show. All right. That's it for me. I did say that, it's a news-driven market, and definitely, there's a lot of news out there, and it's hard to predict the news. I mean, but if you're paying attention, you can kind of, figure out which way the wind's blowing. Obviously, last weekend there was news in Venezuela. They took out Maduro and Valero Energy. It was a big winner from that piece of news. You can see it broke this downtrend and up 12%, which is a huge move for a stock like this. This stock does not move in this fashion. Chevron was up nearly 4% in XOM on that news. Also, we had the news about the mortgage with President Trump talking about two hundred billion. And this is just talk. It's news, but it's not in coming to fruition anytime soon. Just like he talked about the limiting credit card to 10% over the weekend. So you think Visa is going to get hammered on Monday? Maybe, maybe not. It's just a lot of talk, but it is news. So it drives the stock and the market. The algorithms are programmed to these words, and they know that this administration is not stupid. They know what they're doing. I talked about the mortgage, right? And this one was up 44% on Friday, and a lot of these home builders did well on Friday. Open Door was up 13%. DR Horton, the home builders, yeah, made a nice pop off that news, right? News-driven market, and when that news pops in your favor, it looks pretty darn good. When it goes the other way, not so much, right? Anyway, that's it for that group. And I got to go Builder, right? Builder looks pretty decent. It rallied back above its 200. So yeah, there's hope for this group. The um, the actual 30-year fixed interest rate, mortgage rate, fell below 6% on Friday, which is really good news because of people who bought homes at 7%. can refinance, or if you have a loan at 7%, you can refinance maybe now in 2026 at 5.5, or maybe we can get below 4%. People are going to do that, and that's really going to be a boom to the economy if those rates can come down. So we'll see what happens. That's it for me. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up. In honor of the great Steve Jobs, I do have one more thing. Earnings this week starts. We're just kind of warming up here. This is like batting practice before the game. We got Delta Airlines on Tuesday. We got Wells Fargo. We got a lot of banks here. Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and Bank of America. The big three. That's the middle of the order here, and they're reporting on Wednesday. And then we got some cleanup hitters, Goldman Sachs on Thursday, Morgan Stanley. And then we also get Taiwan Semi, which just reported Thursday night, I believe, that they had 20% year-over-year sales growth, which is very nice. And this is going to impact the semiconductor sector for sure. And then the trucking company, JBHT, which has been in rally mode here. Yeah, it had this cup with handle. Now it's broken out. They report on Thursday as well. So something to look forward to. Earnings season is here. Like I said, it's just little warm-ups, little batting practice before the game. We get the big kahunas towards the end of the month and the beginning of February. So, but it's something to look forward to. We're getting earnings now. Obviously the interest rate from the Fed is coming up at the end of the month, and the decision from Supreme Court. There will be some news along the way, as we know. With this administration, there's always going to be news. Never a dull moment, but hang in there. If you didn't have a great week last week, well, check out amcstockcharts.com and some of our ready list stocks. And have a great weekend, everyone. See you Monday morning. Never give up.